little twisted, then you better get ready. And well, we ain't your mama's weekday book club. We're like a dark and a little messed up. A killer twist is what we love. The Twisted Night, your mama's book club.
Yeah. Sweet Jesus.
Just start recording us and let us talk.
Hey, you started the podcast off with Sweet Jesus.
Hey! Welcome back, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back to Twisted Not Your Mama's Book Club. I'm Sarah.
I'm Brandy.
That's Brandy sitting over there.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
What are we doing today, Boo?
Today we are going to do part 2 of The Stranger Beside Me by Anne Rule.
Why'd we have to break it up?
Because it's long.
My God, she can go on and on.
It's long and long and long.
It's long. First of all, we're going to start off by telling you guys we do have our music, and we'd like to thank Devin Navarro for the song. He came up with the lyrics, the music.
And he did a really good job.
He did an
I love
amazing
it.
job. Beautiful. I love her face.
That's nice.
Okay.
Okay.
I am beautiful. but-
Sarah's beautiful, and I love her face.
Like that.
Thank
Just do
you.
what
Perfect.
You have to
do
talk
what
to the mic. We can't talk to each other
Actually,
over
you-
here
I love
like this
you.
because Kiwi gets mad.
I'm not
Kitty gets
getting
so mad.
mad.
Stop it!
I got mad right there. I raised my voice.
Kitty Jane! Ah!
I raised my voice, he said. I raised my voice.
Anyway.
How come she's allowed to lean on the table, but I'm not?
Because it was leaning that side. But I think
it was.
it's fine now.
What'd you say earlier? It was twisted on this side?
Twisted! Not Your Mama's Book Club. Okay, so Devin Navarro, he's done an intro song and an ending song for us. He's amazing, guys. We should feature that song at the beginning of this podcast, correct?
Yeah.
We've been waiting. We are super excited. I'm looking at Sarah again. I can't help it. Her eyes are blue and they're beautiful.
Just talking to the mic.
Just
Talk to the mic.
Look here.
Huh?
You can see them.
Ah! Okay, that's just creepy. Sarah's gonna. This was Sarah's pick for a book, and we left
was.
off at You Bet Your Aspen.
Yeah. We left off with Ted had been arrested, pled guilty. I'm sorry, he pled not guilty, but he was still found guilty of Karen Campbell's murder, and he's serving 15 years in a Colorado state penitentiary.
Penitentiary. Shit, don't do that. Now I can't do it.
Penitentiary.
Penitentiary.
Prison.
Yeah, prison.
He's in prison.
Penal.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so while Ted is in jail, he decides that he is gonna start concocting his next escape plan, right?
Well, it's Colorado, and they just let his ass go.
Clearly, twice.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Twice. So Ted starts losing a bunch of weight. He actually drops like 35 pounds. And he has this plan. He somehow got a hold of the floor plans for the prison.
Okay, so here's the situation as far as I understand it. I don't mean to interrupt.
That's fine.
But as far as I understand it, because Ted had a law degree or had a history of legal law school, a lot of the inmates in the prison system actually were buddies with Ted. Hey, help me do my appeal. Help me do this. Help me do that. So,
I gotcha.
as we know, in most things in life, it's a bartering system.
Yep.
You
Especially
scratch,
in prison.
yeah, you scratchy my backy, I give you prison plans. So, and I'm keeping it clean.
As a sidebar, I can't remember if it was in the tapes or if it was the confession tapes on Netflix, or if it was another podcast that I heard that Ted was actually raped in
He
Colorado.
deserved it. I can't imagine a
Colorado,
better person to happen to.
and he like denied it like crazy, but several of the inmates that participated in it were like, oh yeah, no, we got him.
Yeah, you guys, I'm gonna tell you a little secret. Guys in there on drug charges, guys in there on burglary. Say the word, baby. Baby, say the word I can't say.
Which word?
Burglary?
Burglary?
Burglary.
Burglary.
You're beautiful when you say
Burglary.
it. So several of the dudes who are in prison for that, they're not super fond of the women killing, women raping kind of guys. I mean, prison justice is prison justice. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. So while he is in prison in Colorado, he concocts this plan. He gets the floor plans. He drops all of his weight. He cuts a hole in the ceiling above his prison cell.
In a light
He
fixture.
works on it for a really long time. He actually does trial runs. It wasn't in Ann Rule's book. It was probably another podcast or the confession tapes that I heard.
That's called research, friends.
That a bunch of prisoners were actually complaining about noises in the ceiling, and no one ever did anything about it. So he escapes. He concocts his plan. He puts a whole bunch of books and blankets in like the form of like a human being in his bed, covers it with a blanket. He gets in the ceiling. He actually escapes through a jailer's apartment, takes his clothes, and walks out the fucking front door. Walks out the motherfucking front door of the prison.
Colorado, y'all are doing a good job.
Oh, Lord bless them.
Sweet Jesus.
So, he takes a bus from wherever Aspen to Denver.
You'll bet your Aspen he's free.
Takes a bus from Aspen to Denver, and then actually gets on a flight.
Okay, so what's the deal with TSA back in the 70s?
There was not one? I don't know.
Here's the situation for me. Every time we fly, there is another person who shares my name. She has done something. She has pissed someone off. Okay, guys? I don't know what she's done. It's not me, yo. I'm cool. Next thing you know, I'm just trying to go through customs. I'm just trying to walk through. They're taking all of my whiskey, and they're spread eagling my shit. I'm like, what did I do?
That was in Jamaica, right?
Oh, God, yeah. They had all of the Jameson they could possibly handle.
Poor Brandy had to throw out all that duty-free whiskey in those beautiful 1.5 liter bottles.
Away.
Actually,
I think they took it home and they drank it. Here's what I think they do. They're like, oh, yeah, that girl, she drinks expensive whiskey. I'm going to save that shit. You, into the line. Anyway, I don't know what TSA was doing back in the early 70s, whatever. They clearly were not doing what they do today. Because I can't even, like, bring luggage on with someone like,
I'm pretty sure back in the 70s you could just pay cash and get on a flight. Which is what he had to have done.
He had to have.
Because at this point, I don't think he had any stolen credit cards. He has to, be out for a certain amount of time. So, anyway, he takes a bus to Denver and then takes a flight from Denver to Chicago. When he's in Chicago, he actually takes a train over to Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Did he have pizza while he was in Chicago?
I don't know, but that's not pizza. It's just lasagna in a circle.
Don't come after us, Chicago.
It's not pizza.
It's really super greasy.
It is just a casserole. It is pizza casserole.
Pizza, Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Ann Arbor, Michigan. So then he steals a car and drives it to Atlanta.
Was it a bug?
I think it... I don't know. I know for sure one that he steals in Florida is. So then he goes from Atlanta and drives down to Tallahassee, Florida, and rents an apartment.
Why?
Because he planned on staying there for a long time.
No.
Why do they let him rent an apartment? Again, cash. It's the 70s. Like, there's no internet. There's no databases anywhere. There's hardly even a news cycle at this point in time. Like, he's only known in the Pacific Northwest. He's not known on the East Coast for any of this shit.
What I would like to mention is our boy Teddy, the lady killer. He was able to secure multiple rentals throughout his life. He lived in Washington State. He had a nice place he stayed, and he helped the older lady and her older husband with the property. He had a place in Utah. He gets nice places because there's no background check. There's no, what do you do for a living? It's just like, hey, I'm Ted Bundy. I'm attractive. Can I shake your hand? Here's the cash. Let me rent from you.
Yeah. Well,
surprise. I'm a murderer.
So thanks, Ted, for instilling an environment in this world to where background checks are a regular thing now when you rent apartments, and IDs are now required for when you fly on airplanes.
Not only IDs, but you're like DNA, bitch.
At
least mine. I don't know.
What's your blood type? Okay, so that all happened in December and January. It was late December. I think it was Christmas time around when he escaped from Colorado. He gets to Florida around January of 1978. And then...
Your girl's alive! I'm sorry, I get excited.
Oh, you're alive during this time.
When we read these things...
I am not. I'm still about 9 years away from life.
She's a baby.
So in January, specifically January 15th, 1978, after Ted has been in Florida for a couple of weeks, making himself comfortable, stolen another car, renting an apartment.
I have to say this one thing. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I went back and I listened to this. I listened to chapter 29 today. Teddy tells Anne he's super comfortable in Florida.
Yeah, he like spent the New Year on the beach.
Yeah.
Like went and just suntans.
Yeah, he's drinking a 40 ounce. He stole a bike. He's riding around. He's picking up a TV. And what he compares it to is people need certain things to live. He is taking whatever he needs to live. He hasn't actually swiped a lot of credit cards at this point. But if he goes to the grocery store and he needs sardines, he looks over, he grabs a can of sardines, puts it in his pants pocket. He sees a lady with her bag open, her pocketbook. He grabs her credit cards. He uses them as best he can until they're discovered. He is actually living it up, and he's enjoying the simple freedoms of riding a bicycle, of playing racquetball,
Sitting on the beach,
drinking a 40 ounce in your little tiny one-room place.
Oh, you know what? When he was in Michigan, he actually went to a bar and watched the Rose Bowl game that year because it was between University of Michigan and University of Washington.
Yeah.
So he almost got his ass beat in the bar too because he was like the only Washington fan while he was there.
I've been there.
Talking about simple pleasures.
But he enjoys the simple pleasures. And he actually writes and says, you know what? I should have got a job. But I was super busy loafing around.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Anyway.
'Tis the life.
And he tells Anne this multiple times.
So, January 15th, 1978. This is, side note, the day my mom turned 21.
Mama B!
But,
she's beautiful.
She is beautiful. He breaks into the Chi Omega house with an oak tree limb that he found sitting outside of the house on their firewood pile.
Yeah.
And
Anne remarks that she was Chi Omega.
Was she?
She was. So the coincidence between Anne and Ted are astounding, in my opinion. She says she pledged Chi Omega, but when she was in the Chi Omega sorority, they had like a 8:30, 9:30 curfew. Well, it's 1978, and people are partying. Disco. Yeah,
and it's important to note that this is like right around the time that the semester starts too.
Right.
Like, so everything is, it's not like you have to study and all, so people are probably in bed pretty early.
They're getting to know each other a little bit,
Yeah, well.
trying to figure out who they are. But yeah, Anne mentions, I was actually a pledge. And the women who joined the Chi Omega house were beautiful.
Yeah. Well.
They were smart. They were well off.
Yeah.
And I'll chime in on that a little bit later.
That is just the kind of girl that Ted looks for. So, on the night of January 15th, 1978, Ted breaks into the Chi Omega house in Tallahassee, Florida. He grabs an oak tree limb from their firewood pile outside of the house.
It's Florida. Do they really need a fire?
And he bludgeons Lisa Levy and Margaret Bowman to death. He also severely beats Karen Chandler and Kathy Kleiner. They live.
One of the ladies were wearing the spongy rollers in their hair.
Yeah, and he beat them so hard that all of that blood actually dried up in one of their hair. And I heard somewhere that the mortician couldn't do anything with her. Like, he had to basically leave her hair curled because her hair was just plastered, cemented from all the blood that was in her hair.
Sweet God.
So Karen Chandler and Kathy Kleiner actually lived. They were severely injured, but when police arrived on the scene.
Is it an easy word that I can pronounce and a hard word you can't? I don't understand.
When police arrived on the scene, Karen and Kathy were so severely beaten that they thought they were all dead, but they were still alive.
What about the kitty?
What about the kitty?
The kitty left the house a day before. Guys, if you have pets always know. But I'm going to tell you a little something. Pets know. Pay attention closely to your animals. The house cat who was at Chi Omega ran off the day before Bundy made his rampage.
Interesting.
No, the kitties always know. Pay attention to your pets.
Yeah. So while police are at the Chi Omega house and securing the crime scene, they actually get a phone call while they are there of someone about 6 blocks away has broken into Cheryl Thomas's apartment and is attacking her. Her neighbors call 911, and that's the phone call that comes in over the police radio. That swallow was really loud.
Oh, nope. I need my waters.
Yeah. I think it's so, like, he just beat 4 women, but it wasn't enough for him. Like,
He
most...
breaks one of them correctly.
Yes. Yeah, with the oak tree limb.
Oh.
I think it's so crazy that it wasn't enough for him. Most criminals would be like, okay, I did this horrible thing. I gotta go hide now.
Most humans.
Not Ted Bundy, though.
How does he find
is
this stamina?
so fucking arrogant that he is going to go break into someone else's apartment 6 blocks away. Like, within, like, 6 blocks. I mean, you can hear gunshots. You can hear screams if they're loud enough from 6 blocks away. But by the time police got there, he was already gone.
Of course. The stamina. Do you know it burns 3,000 calories to bludgeon, stab, or beat someone to death?
I did not know that.
Yeah. So
How
does
did
he
you know that?
Are you serious? I thought
Why
everyone.
do you guys
I thought that was common
allude
knowledge.
to her as a murderer?
I'm not a murderer. I've been doing. Look,
We know.
Sarah and I connected on this level because I've always been interested in this. I don't know how
clarify-
the left goes to the
clarify-
right
To clarify, crime, you were interested
in crime. Yeah,
Not
and what?
committing crimes.
No. And what makes the human brain go from the right to the left? That was one of the things Sarah and I have started talking about years ago. I've always been interested in figuring out why do some people as far left, and I'm like, let's just stay down the middle, guys. It's always been an interest to me. So yeah, 3,000 calories.
She's funny. She thinks she's in the middle.
I just always been interested in that. So it takes 3,000 calories. Okay. So how does he find the stamina? Did he eat like all of the
He
Whataburger?
carbo loaded
He
beforehand.
carbo loaded that shit. How does he go from I'm like perfectly happy with my bicycle and playing racquetball at the college and my 40 ounce to I have to kill all of the women?
This is what's interesting about Ted. I mean, and I really want to know your opinion. Do you think that he was so arrogant that he just didn't think that he was going to get caught the second time, or he was just so not in control of himself?
Okay. Because I have that deep down belief that all humankind are human and that they're all good people, I think his escalation into madness is a cry, is a scream for someone stop me.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to think. At the same time, he is such a narcissistic fucker who is so above all of us. Anyone who's ever walked the face of the earth.
Thinks he's above all of us.
He thinks, yes. That maybe he thought he could get away with it.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both of
Yeah.
them. I think that he, probably in his head, didn't realize really how bad it was. It was just this need that he was fulfilling, and thought
We're gonna
that
talk
I'm
about some of his needs.
so much smarter than everyone else that no one's gonna realize it's me. If you watch the confession tapes on Netflix, because Rule doesn't really talk about it,
Right.
which is one of my criticisms of Rule's book, but we'll get
It's
there.
from her perspective.
Yeah, yes, it's from her perspective.
She
But-
was entwined with this beast.
and 100%, I get all of that. But in the confession tapes, he actually talks about how, damn it, where was I going with that? What was I talking about?
Oh, how he de-escalated or escalated rather.
Yeah, no, I lost it.
Okay.
Maybe it'll pop up somewhere else.
It'll pop up. Yeah, one of the problems with Anne is she is so close to Teddy.
Yeah.
It's hard for her to look at it until the very end. And like we mentioned before, this was a long book. Guys, the epilogue is in a 2-part series.
I know.
It's about 3 hours long.
We're not done with the murder shit, though.
No, let's continue with
Okay.
Chi Omega.
So that was the end of Chi Omega. That was January 78, and February 78. Ted kidnaps, murders rapes 12-year-old Kimberly Leach from her school in the middle of the day. This is actually his last known murder. There could have been one after that. No one's really sure. I'm sure Ted's not even sure. But Kimberly was leaving. She had forgotten something, I think, in school, and she was walking back from gym back to the school to get something, and she was walking with one of her friends, and this man in a white van.
Stay away from murder vans, children.
Stay away from murder vans. And bugs, apparently. Murder bugs.
Murder beetle bugs.
Murder beetle bugs. And he lures Kimberly into the van, and then was her body ever found?
No.
No. So 15 days later, Ted is actually arrested in Pensacola. Officer David Lee pulls him over for a routine.
Was he stocky?
I don't know.
Sorry, I just assume everyone's stocky.
You
I'm
have
sorry.
got to
I have
leave.
reason. I have PTSD.
You have got to let the stocky go. Like, you've got to let it go. If you do not let it go, I'm going to start freaking singing Frozen songs every time you bring
Let it go.
No. Okay, so routine traffic stop. Officer David Lee pulls Ted over. I cannot remember exactly all the interactions that happened between them, but Ted, he's going to arrest him. I think there's probably stuff in the car that leads the officer to want to arrest him.
He's a famous track star.
Is he? Well,
Yeah, he's given the name of some famous track star.
Ken Meisner is the name I have written down.
Yes,
Okay.
good girl.
Yeah. So Ted's arrested, but he is it's because there's a bunch of stolen stuff in the car. There's
What's that word?
Stolen? Burglary.
Burglary. He has burglary items in the vehicle.
Burglared items and stolen. I don't know. Just say stolen. Theft. So he has stolen items in the vehicle. Ted actually resists arrest. He actually knocks the feet out from underneath Officer Lee.
But do you remember
he's also,
what he says?
What?
Not to interrupt you, I'm sorry. But do you remember...
We're going to go to therapy because she interrupts me so much.
Look, our therapist's dog has to have its own therapy dog. He actually begs the police officer.
Medicine that we're all on.
He actually begs the police officer to kill him.
Oh, he does. Yeah, that's
If
that's
I
one thing I
run-
wanted to say earlier.
Will you...
Shoot me. No, when
Shoot
he puts the handcuffs on him, he says, "You should have shot me. You
the
should have killed me."
gleam of humanity. Because
One little
he knows
gleam. Yep.
he needs...
Yeah. So
ended.
Ted gives the cops a fake name. He gives them the name Ken Meisner. He actually goes up for a bond hearing, and the judge refuses to let him out on bond because Ted refuses to give his name. He says, "We can't issue you a bond without a name. So if you want to get out on bond, you have to give us your name." Ted refuses for 2 days to give the cops his name. Finally, he does break down and says, "I'll give you my name if you let me call Liz." He also ends up calling Anne. I don't think the same night. It's only after he gives them the identity. But he trades the phone call to Liz for his real name. He calls Liz at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
God, this girl.
She asks him where he is. He says, "I'm in Florida." And she said, "Are you there because of the murders of the sorority girls?" And he says, "I don't want to talk about it. Back off." So, and then he actually ends up calling Anne.
Yes.
And he tells Anne that the policemen want you to come down here. They're going to pay for your flight. They want to come and they want you to come and they want to talk to you. And so he gets on the phone with Anne. Anne actually calls the Pensacola Police Department back, and they're like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
Like, so even homeboy is he's still lying. He's still
lying.
manipulating, which is crazy.
He goes as far as to convince Anne that if she rushes down there, he will release some of the things that he's been holding back. The last interaction that him and her had face to face was, "There are things I want to tell you.
Yeah.
But I cannot."
Yeah.
So he actually calls her. She's in LA working on a screenplay. Again, guys, we would really like to know what movie she was involved in. We've both done our research. We can't find it.
I want to know.
I don't want to know.
It is also important to know that at this point, he's still not charged with the murders.
No,
He's
yeah.
only arrested for stolen and resisting arrest.
Right, so he's
and
waiting to
assault
drop
against
the
a police
bomb.
officer. Yep.
The Bundy bomb.
Eventually, when he releases his name, which was 2 days after his arrest, they're like, oh shit. Okay.
Well, it takes him like 24 to 48 hours because they didn't get who they had.
Yeah.
But he's like the whole time.
That's another important thing to kind of to insert here is that there's no internet. There's no database for police officers on a national level.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation, which was the violent incident police force, which Anne is instrumental in getting in place, it doesn't exist. So we don't know what kind of psycho is going from state to state.
In 1978, faxes aren't even commonplace. Like, every police department doesn't even have a fax machine at this point in time. So it's really hard. They had to send things to each other through the mail.
Like literal snail mail.
Snail mail, which just even now takes several days and sometimes
It's
a
the
week,
worst.
week and a half for things to get from point A to point B.
Agreed.
So, after he finally reveals his identity to the cops, several months later, he is indicted for the murders of Bowman and Levy, and the attempted murders of Thomas, Kleiner, and Chandler.
Yes, ma'am. He's not suspected at this point of Kimberly Leach.
He is
because
not.
he went 34 miles away to Pensacola, which is beautiful.
Yep. Okay. So May of 79, Ted actually rejects a plea deal. They offer him 75 years if he pleads guilty to the murders.
Is that when his family and everyone come to him and say please?
I think so.
Okay.
At this point, they're begging him. And it's really kind of interesting to note that if he had pled guilty to those murders, over time, he probably could have gotten out of jail because witnesses would have died off, evidence would have become less credible. Mm-hmm. So if he had pled guilty to those murders and gotten 75 years, he probably only would have spent about 20 to 30 years in jail and gotten out. So, but it comes back to that fact that he's so fucking arrogant. He couldn't stand up in front of other people and say, yeah, it was me. I did it. I plead guilty. He had to argue the fact that he was not guilty. So in that same month, his trial starts. And you love the trial, so I'm going to let you talk about the trial.
Okay. What I love about the trial is Judge Cowart. I'm going to go back to my notes. If you watch the movie, extremely shocking.
Extremely, well,
Oh, crap.
Shocking.
Okay, extremely.
It was in some of your notes somewhere.
Yeah.
Extremely wicked,
Shockingly evil and vile.
There you go.
That is a quote from Judge Cowart himself, who he actually quotes that about the crimes that Ted has committed in the sentencing phase of Ted Bundy. I love Mr. Cowart. I love Judge Cowart. He is a man who spent his life in law enforcement. He's a Southern man. He is exactly what I believe is the soul of the South. He is a smart, no nonsense, no bullshit, but sweet soul. There is a spirit down here that would rather sweetly tell you off, but still they want you to know, fuck you. Okay? I love Judge Cowart. He's
Played
amazing.
by the amazing John Malkovich.
It's Malkovich. How can you go wrong with the movie on Netflix? Sarah is huge lover of what's
Zac
his name?
Efron.
Ugh.
Anything and everything that Zach's in, I'll watch.
Yeah. So Judge Cowart is my hero. Judge Cowart dies 8 years and 1 day. 8 years, 1 day to the date that he sentenced Teddy to death. He elaborates Teddy. Teddy gets to pick and choose. He says, he goes, he defends himself. And the best part of this whole thing is Judge Cowart tells him only a fool has himself for a client. That's an Abraham Lincoln quote because Lincoln was a lawyer.
Was he? Yeah.
Yeah. So if Lincoln said it, y'all should fucking listen, yo. If Judge Cowart's saying it, the man's brilliant. He's sweet. He's patient. You had mentioned something about maybe him being told many times in his life, just because I talk slow doesn't mean I am.
Yeah, just because I talk slow don't mean I'm slow.
Don't mean I'm slow.
stupid.
It does not. Guys, he was a brilliant man.
Yep. There's so many interesting things about this trial, though. It was actually the first televised.
Yeah, it was the
Criminal
first
trial.
televised criminal trial. And I'm sorry, did I get loud? I got excited.
You got so
Woohoo!
excited.
I got so excited.
Yeah, first televised trial ever in the history of the world.
In the history of the world. Also, Bundy asks Judge Cowart, can we please keep the cameras out of here? And Judge Cowart says, no, we cannot, because we are in a public forum.
Yeah.
And it is the public's right to judge you.
Yep. So many interesting
Man,
things.
it was amazing.
So many interesting things happened during this trial. For example, he asked Carol Ann Boone while she's on the stand as a character witness.
That's actually in the Kimberly Leach trial.
Oh, that is in the Kimberly Leach trial. That is later on. Yeah.
So that's in a different court. The first trial,
I don't know what this means.
I don't know what that means. What was that?
I don't know. I'm shaking my hands.
Oh my god, this cough drop is disgusting.
Okay, so
I got to the
I will
medicine part.
explain. Sarah is suffering from seasonal allergies.
I have
Also,
strep throat.
God, I hope not. We have this dust that flows up from Africa a couple times a year. It really happens, and Sarah's dying. Baby, it's okay.
I got to the medicine part of that cough drop and it was disgusting.
So the African Sahara dust flows up from Texas, and it's kicking our asses.
I think I was having a cough drop too. That's why I went into the restroom.
So you got to the medicine part.
Look, guys,
was-
I thought Ricola.
It's Ricola.
Ricola. Whatever. So just take care of my folks. And they don't like it. I would like to talk about, other than Judge Cowart, there's a lot of things that Anne talks about in this book. We're here to talk about the book, not just the sicko Teddy. It isn't until the Kimberly Leach trial where she sees the forensic odontology.
Odontology.
Odontology! What's odontology?
The study of Odin.
What? No, that's the Swedish god. No, it's the study of dental. It's dental. It's your teeth. But the study of forensic odontology has dated back to the Salem witch trials, and that is the irrefutable proof that it takes for Anne Rule to actually understand that Teddy, he's guilty. The bite marks on the sweet baby who is 12 years old, Kimberly Leach,
Yep.
on her buttocks.
So in July of 1979, he's found guilty for the murders of Levy and Bowman and the attempted murder of Thomas Kleiner and Chandler, and he's sentenced to death.
Yes.
And then it's in the trial in February of 1980 for
Leach.
Leach's murder that Ted is cross-examining Carol Ann Boone on the stand in front of a judge. He takes advantage of this like crazy obscure law in Florida that if you ask someone to marry you in front of a judge, then you are legally married. So he asked Carol Ann to marry him in front of a judge, and then they are married.
She has to declare. So the first time he gets it wrong. The first time he asks, he gets it wrong. So the counsel tells him, look, you got to do it this way. She has to say, I will marry you. You have to say, you will marry her. So they become married. Carol Ann Boone is a whole other subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ted had groupies. Ted had a lot of women, including Anne and Liz, who loved and followed him. Carol Ann Boone was that next level bitch. She had a folie à deux. We find out that Ted loves French wine, French food. Hey, mad respect that you dig your nice wines, but a folie à deux is where two people share a psychosis. It's where if I lead Sarah down a road that we're going to jump into the Mad Hatter's land, and Sarah believes me, we're now sharing a stupid psychosis between two of us, but it can also mean more than one or two.
So February of 1980, he is found guilty of Leach's murder. Actually, the following year, Carol Ann gives birth to a daughter that she names as Ted as the father. They apparently in prison in Florida, it's very commonplace to, just like in Colorado, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Right.
That prisoners used to bribe the prison guards for
$5
for conjugal time.
$5 a pop.
Yep. So Bundy spends about the next 8-9 years in jail before he starts confessing to various law enforcement personnel just days before he is murdered, about 5 days before executed.
It's his fifth plea. It is the fifth time he's been sentenced to death. He has pleaded and tried and gone back and forth so many times. His defense attorney begs for his life. We find out that Anne Rule actually begs for his life.
Does she?
She does.
Well, I mean, and I kind of see Anne's point, which we will probably talk a little bit more about in our mini twisty on capital punishment. So Ted starts confessing to all these various law enforcements. But he gives different stories to everyone he talks to.
Everybody.
So he just
cannot
still,
stop the bullshit.
up until the day he dies, he cannot stop the bullshit. So on January 24th, 1989, Ted Bundy is executed by electric chair.
Old Sparky.
Old Sparky.
Can we get into what he was offered to eat?
Sure, if you want to talk
Okay.
about it. We got to wrap it up, but yeah.
Yeah, no. The state of Florida offers you a steak medium rare. They offer you toast. They offer you eggs, whichever way you'd like them. They offer you juice and coffee. Our friend Teddy has conveniently slipped in and out of religions. Whichever religion it was that fit him at that time. He was a Mormon when he lived in Utah. Huzzah. Mm-hmm. He was a Methodist when he lived on the East Coast. He became a Buddhist, and then he switched to Hinduism. The problem I have with Ted Bundy is it's convenient for you, but it's not God. Yeah. You're a Hindu. Hindus believe in no harm. Hindu believe in reincarnation. Hindu believe that God is in everything. Everything around you is God-based. So Ted stops eating meat because God's in that plant. God's in that cow. He stops doing those things because he believes in Hinduism. But what's the bottom line of Hinduism? Sarah, tell us what a narcissist likes.
Themselves.
Well, also reincarnation.
Oh. You said, what is a narcissist like?
Well, they
What
love
is that?
themselves.
Not what a Hindu likes.
So a narcissistic person wants to believe that they can come back. They can have a new life.
Oh.
They can be
Are
reincarnated.
you saying that Hindus are narcissists?
No. Hindus are sweet souls who believe in nothing but good. And narcissists believe that, hey, if I come back, I get to fuck people up uno más, por favor. One more time, please.
I'm still not seeing the connect. All right. So, after he's executed, his body is cremated and his ashes are scattered at an undisclosed location. Rumor has it, though, that they were scattered in the mountains in Washington where he hid all the bodies.
Did you know he was a necrophiliac?
I mean, there's a couple law enforcement personnel he does tell that, like, he would go back to the body dump sites and sit there and have sex with their decomposing bodies. Yeah.
Later on in a confession tape, which he does not do until he's been convicted 5 times, which, by the way, Carol Ann Boone does pull away from him.
Mm-hmm. She actually doesn't take a phone call the day that he's executed.
The day that he's executed, I think it was the 5th time he was sentenced to the death penalty. She decided to pull away from him. She had a sick relative, air quotes, that she decided to go back home to Washington and give up the Teddy Bundy, my bunny. So he actually tells several people in interviews he blames pornography to a preacher. He blames several different things for his depravity. But let me read this quote. And this is outside of what Anne Rule does. I'd also like to mention that when Anne Rule finally has irrefutable proof that Bundy did it, she runs from the room and vomits. He had her twisted. He had all these women twisted. You guys, this man twisted everyone around him. Later on, this is a quote, later on, Bundy is abducting, raping, and engaging in necrophilia. He claims... Necrophilia, excuse me. He claims to have complete control over his victims. The reason he wanted necrophilia, or to necrocize, I don't know what the proper word is, his victims, because he feels a complete control. He feels an intimacy with the women that he could never achieve in real life. In me and you sitting here, warm flesh, Ted Bundy felt like he was never good enough. He was never close enough. He could never achieve actual intimacy and sexual gratification with a live person.
Yeah. Yep. We went down a dark road.
Well, necrophilia, guys. It's disgusting.
Yeah. So, overall, I'd give this book, I don't know, 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Sure.
Anne Rule does a really good job giving a really detailed, personal
Super
overview
detailed.
of Ted's life. If that's what you're looking for, this is the perfect book for you.
Yeah.
Rule does not go into those grisly details like Brandy just went into.
She still loves and respects him. At the end of it, what does she say, Sarah? Where she wishes he would have been alive.
So you can study him.
So you can study him.
Yep.
She thinks that his life being extinguished was a loss for human society.
So yeah, if that's what you're looking for, those grisly details, this is not the book for you. Do note, however, that lack of morbid details is probably just a reflection of a time. I mean, Anne Rule, that's not the writer that she is really in any of her writing. She doesn't go into any of those grisly, morbid, kind of
I don't understand what's wrong with the morbid shit.
details.
I don't understand where you're going with this.
What would you give this book?
Because it was a page turner and because it was honestly do not look away, I would give it a 4.5.
Yeah.
I would have given it a 5 if my girl Anne could have pulled herself up and realized he was fooling us all, baby.
Yeah, you can't
He
victim
was
shame, though.
fooling us all.
You cannot
I'm not
victim
victim shaming. I'm saying
Yep.
he was fooling us all.
Yep,
And this
he
is
was.
proof after proof that
Yep.
he was the manipulator that everyone believes he was.
Agreed. Yep. So that's going to be it for part 2 of The Stranger
What are we
Beside
doing?
Me.
Are we doing capital punishment?
Next week we're going to have a little mini twisty on capital punishment. And then after that we are going to, our next book is going to be Intensity by Dean Koontz, is picked by Brandy. Guys, we love you. Don't forget to like us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, follow us
we're
on Spotify.
Yeah, bitches.
If you've got any feedback,
Please send this to our email.
which is thedarkandtwistedpodcast@gmail.com.
We're getting on Patreon.
Very soon we're going to be on Apple Podcast, and we are going to be on Patreon also.
We're waiting for Apple to say, yeah, I love you.
Yeah.
How could they not? Guys, thank you again. We'll see you next week.
And well, we ain't your mama's weekday book club. We like it dark and a little messed up. A killer twist is what we love. The Twisted Night, your mama's book club.